Hello and welcome to the Billion Dollar Broker Podcast. My name is Ross LeCane. I'm bringing my 25 years industry experience together with leading experts around the globe to give you the insights on how to live a better life and grow a profitable mortgage broking business that you are proud of. Welcome to another episode of the Billion Dollar Broker Podcast. I'm Ross LeCane and I say it's a global podcast and we're going global, not too global, but across the ditch to New Zealand. And we've got the number two broker in New Zealand on the line today. So welcome, Dhingra.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for setting up this podcast, which you've been doing from a good time and interviewing some good people, which I've just gone through. It's quite nice.
Excellent. And it's a pleasure to have you here because, you know, I just saw that you've been noted in the top 100 in the global mortgage broking. So that's a big honor. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And you're also number 2 in the top brokers within New Zealand. So it's a great honor as well.
Exactly. No, thank you so much.
So you're the CEO of Fundmaster, a mortgage broking and insurance company. And you started in November 2012. So I'm really keen to understand, how you got into mortgage broking in New Zealand and share a bit of the journey on those early days with us.
Yes, why not? 2012 was a turning point in my career, or the starting of my mortgage broking world. I used to work with a bank called ASB Bank, which is CBA's subsidiary in New Zealand. And working with ASB, I would say the opportunity was given by ASB for me to learn and grow with them. So I always have them in my heart, and I always thank them for making me who I am in terms of giving me the opportunity. So I was in ASB Bank before I became a mortgage broker, but mortgage broking came at a very different level. New Zealand market was going on high speed, was just picking up the momentum. And I had met Brian Greer, who was a loan market CEO in New Zealand at that time, was Allied Kiwi CEO who I met. And I was literally motivated. And basically, from his motivation, I took up on the challenge to be a mortgage broker. It was very shaky for me at that time to leave salary in the bank. But I had some other colleagues as well who were going into that broking industry. So it was good. It was nervous. I was very nervous at that time, but it all went well because it was a great challenge and a lot of good people from within the bank and outside the bank who made sure that I became successful in terms of helping me, giving me business and supporting me. So
how important is that, when you are starting, how is it important is it to lean on other people to get their advice and help with the structures? You want to talk a bit about on that?
Yeah, it's very, very important to get the right initiation. See, at the end of the day, you being a mortgage broker, we all understand that there's a lot of hard work which goes in being an advisor or broker. But when you have the right people who come in the right time to tell you that this is the way to do it, we are going to back you up. And some people who are within the industry and outside the industry back you up and say, we have full confidence in you, go for it. Even though they know that you have to do all the work, but the piece of advice and the confidence which you get, it's very, very important and very key for anyone to start on the journey.
Yeah, excellent. Can you remember any pieces of advice, any gold nuggets you got on the start of your journey that's helped you in your career?
Yes, I remember the biggest piece of nugget I got, which was from ASB, was customer service. Make sure that you look after your customers because that's what was reiterated by my mentor as well, from Allied Kiwi, Brian Greer. And he did mention that make sure that you do the best for your customers, making sure that you keep a balance between the customer and the bank, because you can't sway towards one. You have to make sure that the bank, who we are representing in front of the customer, is also their requirements are met. But making sure that the customer's interest is at heart and making sure that the bank, so it's like creating a balance. So that was the best nugget I got. And then a BDM from Westpac Bank also gave me the same nugget. He says that planning is a key. Make sure you plan, because once you start getting on your feet and you start running, business starts to follow you. You would have no time planning. But I didn't listen to him. because I was more, I wanted to run
Well,
faster than.
yeah, more focused on getting the business going. And so what was
Yes.
some of the tactics that you took at that point? Obviously, you start with a zero pipeline of clients. What were some of the things that you did when you first got into the business to generate business?
The first point is I was in my ASB days. I had a BDM role as well, so I was doing more community work in terms of setting up a segment for the bank. From there on, I was also doing a lot of radio as a radio jockey. So I used to work as a radio jockey on a
Interesting.
Indian radio station in New Zealand by the name of Radio Tarana. And from there, I was always going out in the community, talking to a lot of people, which was always a forte for me to go out on stage and talk to people and do. I used to do a lot of master of ceremonies as well. So I
Yeah.
used to conduct shows and music shows and sing and dance shows and go out and do stuff. So I was always outspoken and outward. So I did, it did help me in terms of going and talking to a lot of real estate agents, a lot of real estate agents who helped me, a lot of people, the customers who I got in, I started working with them, helping them. So it was more of business development and joining as many organizations and making sure that I was present and available in every community function, every public function, and making sure that wherever people and there were gatherings, I made sure I was present there as a volunteer, not as a person who's sitting on the stage, but as a volunteer to show that I'm one of us
One
who's
of
just
them.
trying to do
Yeah.
one of them who's just trying to work in terms of getting them the best solutions from the bank in terms of
And
financial.
isn't that a beautiful thing about mortgage broking? Our market is so big in terms of if you put yourself out there and add value, no matter what community it is, whether it's a sporting community, a local community, as you've mentioned, or the fact is, a lot of those people, as soon as they learn what you do and the fact that you're showing up, you're adding value, you're one of them, a lot of people have mortgages, right? So just by putting yourself out there in your sphere and expanding your sphere, you get business in. So I love that. Love that.
Definitely. And basically, I think Ross, you touched on it very, and that's the point which I tell all my brokers, that be out there. Business is not going to come through the door if you're sitting inside a room. Obviously, in lockdown you have, but even in lockdown, if you're out and about, Facebook Live sessions, interviewing different people, doing segments, which is now a new thing. But in older days, going back to 2012, it was all about being out there and in front of people and making sure that you were always there to help them in what way possible you could.
Yeah, love it. Love it. And I think that's great for anyone that's getting started in this mortgage broking industry or anyone who's been there for a long time. And I was listening to a little YouTube clip by Jim Rohn this week. And one of the things he was talking about was on time, right? So how much time are you actually spending belly to belly with clients? And you just touched it then. And in lockdown and where we are at the moment, you can do Facebook Lives and give to people. You can pick up the phone, you can do Zoom calls. But how many times are you actually spending, actually adding value out there within your clients and your community? And if you focus on that, not just for yourself, but for the whole team, it's really, really powerful, right?
Exactly.
We've got all the back end work we do. And my staff used to do a lot of the stuff on the back end. I'm like, does the client know that you're doing this? Have you actually given them the updates and picked up the phone and made the calls? Because again, what's the point if we're not providing that service and we're not giving the time to the client? So I love that.
Exactly.
So so that was November 2012 when you got started. And how quickly did you sort of start getting some runs on the board and getting settlements through?
Very interesting. I must say that I started running from the get-go. I did the first month of commissions was more than my annual salary in the bank. so it just gave me a lot of confidence. I did 66 million in my first year as a single broker who was trying to run around and do everything. I started from my garage and in a small suburb called Farm Cove out in Pecoranga, East Auckland. And that's where I started working. And there was a lot of support, as I said, from a lot of people, my wife, a lot of community people, a lot of other friends. There was a lot of support which came through. And runs on the board, as I said, it was just I I couldn't thank people enough that how much of uh, leverage or mileage I got from a lot of people, and it was all word of mouth. I didn't have a website. I didn't have any other means of advertising. I didn't go on radio. I didn't do any typical advertising material. The only thing which came through was my word of mouth and my customers who I could do a good job. And most importantly, the bankers. A lot of bankers did tell me and train me in terms of how to, basically process for their bank. So I was an ASB product. I knew how to do a deal in ASB, where the decision engine was quite quick. But in ANZ, the broker assessor I got at that time was really helpful in terms of helping me. And in basically Westpac, I had someone very good who helped me. And they were business managers. So all these people helped me as well to ascertain and understand the different banking policies so I could be quicker and I could deliver faster to my customers in terms of service. And that made a lot of customers come through.
Yeah, love it. So, again, some great nuggets there, sort of obviously the power of word of mouth, the power of networking, but not just networking to get business. And I always say this, networking to do business. And so that internal networking with those banking relationships is so important because one, they give you, again, they gave you the training on how to structure and how to put a deal and how to get favorable responses with those key lenders, which then in turn leads to better customer outcomes and them singing your praises and obviously generating that amazing word of mouth referrals to do that sort of volumes in your first year. So well done. That's amazing. So then let's have a look in terms of obviously we started and we had a really good first year. In terms of then to obviously with that becomes challenges, right? Because as we grow and we grow so quickly, and you mentioned earlier you didn't, quite put the planning that you wish you probably should have. What were some of the things that you learned through that sort of growth in terms of the scaling teething problems that we have that you sort of remember back to those days?
Yes, Ross, I remember everything. And I think the biggest nugget is also one more thing is knowing your bank's policy you want to deal with. The more policy reading you do, the better, because the policies are the backbone of every bank. Once you know what is in a policy, then you can work around it with the customers in the bank. But going on your question, challenges, as every broker has, is we are salespeople, we're not people managers, right? So that's a challenge we all go through. I had my first employee who I had hired in the first 6 months, and I got her for 25 hours a week. And I used to ask her to, check my emails and stuff, but I used to still do hands-on, putting a deal through, processing it myself, meeting the customer, doing the structure, basically doing everything, right? And planning, planning would have been if I would have hired more people, or I could have seen through that where I could go. The only goal I had made ever was when I went to a local award function for the group, and I saw someone getting the #1 award, and I said, I want to get that in 3 years. That's the only goal I had in my head, nothing written on paper. And I was just working towards, my main goal always was that how many customers can I get into their house? It was not how many dollars will I make, how many millions will I settle? It was how many people can I get into their house? No. And that was the biggest kick or the biggest motivation for me that, okay, I remember one of my customers took 1 year to find a house. So it was constant follow-up. So any mortgage broker, as you would also say, is that it's making sure that you understand the customer and their needs in terms of needs analysis, in terms of the fact find we all do, making sure we understand about where they want to be, and then work with them towards their goal. And when their goals are achieved of finding a property and the right property, you feel a sense of achievement yourself. So
I love just what you said there, right? Because this is this thing, and I work with lots of brokers and I talk to lots of brokers, and a lot of brokers focus on what they need, right? And they're very transactional mindset. What do I need? Like, I need a pay slip, I need this, I need that. And they focus on what they need rather than flipping the switch and going, I'm going to focus on what the customer needs, right? And I love what you were saying there about your goal is not about dollars, not about loan numbers, it's about customers and it's about customer outcomes. Because I think if you flip the switch then, and it's no wonder that you're one of the top brokers in New Zealand, because the top brokers focus firstly on relationships and secondly on transactions, right? So I love what you were saying there, and sorry to cut you off, but it's just such a fantastic point. I wanted to highlight that.
No, it's fine, Ross. You can cut me off anytime because as we are salespeople, I can't stop talking. so you would have to cut me off when you want to. But the point is that you're right. I'll just bring it to everyone's attention again that if we don't have customers, either way, so bank customers, the internal network, and the outside, the customers who give us business, if both these customers are not happy, a mortgage broker's job is not done. So making sure that balance is created and making sure that best customer outcome. And as you said, flipping towards the customer, my biggest thing, or I'll say the biggest element which I go back and when I'm talking to you, thinking around it, is being how to comfort a customer. Give the customer the comfort which they can't get from a bank, which they can't get from other people who are transactional. If you're giving them the comfort that, hey, mate, I'm going to stand with you, don't worry. If it's your first auction, I'll stand with you. I'll go with you to the auction. If it's your first time, no problems. If this is what you want to do in first investment, no problems. If you say, oh, but I will only have a problem for you. No, we are problem solvers. Our point is to derive a solution for the customer. They come to a mortgage broker for a solution. And if we can't give them a solution, right, it's like going dealing with a bank. So, yeah.
Oh, exactly. And that, that is the whole business, right? We are our own product. We selling ourselves at the end of the day, but what differentiates us, and you mentioned a couple of things there in terms of, hey, it's not just about the transaction, not even about the product. It's about me helping you get into a home, right? And so if that means I have to teach you how to make an offer at auction, I'm going to do that. I'm going to stand alongside you. I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do and what moves you need to make. And, that then comes down with a different level of expertise, right? So as you say, you start off and your average broker will learn, and they'll learn the credit policy, they'll learn the products, they'll learn the rates. But the next level is, okay, I'm going to understand everything about the market, right? I'm going to understand the buying process. I'm going to understand the first home buyer market. I'm going to understand the investment market. And that level of expertise is exponential, right? Because all the things you can learn about business, about, financing, it goes on and on. So, it's what you learn the quote that it's what you learn once you know everything that counts is especially true in mortgage broking. And if you're like me, Dev, you're an endless learner, and there's always stuff that you can learn about different markets that we can serve, isn't there?
Definitely. It really helps you to understand the overall market situation, reading articles, fixing versus floating interest rates, and then having your own opinion, because we can't advise them on everything, but we can have our opinion or a commentary in terms of, probably this is where I would think it would go, but you could be wrong as well. But most of the times you create an understanding of a market where you could give a customer some peace of mind.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. Peace of mind in terms of is everything. And I guess it's why they come and choose to work with a broker, because again, you can work to a bank staff, but they're not going to be around, right? A broker is long-term, someone that's going to stay with them. And it's going to give them that peace of mind with something, it's not every day they go and spend, whatever it is. What's the average price in Auckland at the moment?
$1 million.
Yeah, it's not every day that they spend $1 million, is it? Right. So when you're spending $1 million, I want people on my team that are going to give me that peace of mind, because it's damn stressful, right? So I love it. So let's move into as you sort of grew your team in terms of, and now you mentioned you've got quite a large staff with like 32 people on your team and 11 contract advisors. 22 sort of back office support staff in turning some internal brokers. So you went from a sales guy who didn't like managing people to now running a big team. So what's the secret to running a big team?
There's no secret. I think when we are salespeople, as I'll take you to 2013 and 14, 15, when I was growing. So my first year was 66, second year was 99, right? Third year went past 150, and then after that 200 plus started, right? So basically, as I was growing, and you hire people, as a broker, you want to make sure that you give the best customer service to the customer, right? And in that, I went through a lot of people. I went through a lot of high turnover of team of people who I hired and gone, because at that time you can't control your nerves in terms of making sure you get the best customer outcome, best customer service, and then your staff gets overpressured in terms of a lot of work which comes through. And when you start, you try to micromanage as a mortgage broker. You want to do everything yourself. You want to make sure you're across every deal. You want to make sure that your team is doing the right thing. But we forget one thing, that everybody has their own speed of learning and doing things. And everybody needs to enhance their skill while they work with you. But when you want to control everything as a mortgage broker, you sometimes try to overshadow in terms of, no, this is the right way. You do it this way or you don't do it. So I did a lot of mistakes. A lot of issues came in terms of managing people. A lot of issues came in terms of delivery systems. I always made sure that my customers are not unhappy. And that's where, if you don't create a balance in life, which we all learn with COVID-19, creating a balance, you go towards one end of the spectrum, and then you start losing the other end. So as and when I had grown, I had tried to hire managers, try to hire people, different stints. Another thing, as a budding advisor or somebody who's just started making money, you start to basically hire in terms of not spend too much money on hiring. You want to do some more marketing or more investments. And that's another blunder we do when we grow. So I learned it the hard way, that it's not about you and your way. It's all about standardizing the process and keeping a minimum expectation of your team and making sure they're right people to manage the team. In today's time, I've got a very great gentleman who's my general manager, who's managing the whole team. So I'm not involved in day to day. I'm basically going out and getting new business and trying to convert customers and talk to them if there's a problem. Our GM basically looks after the team, the admin team, and he's growing the team. Then there's a contracting advisors team, which basically also grows with us and understands. I work with them. Then there's another backbone person who really worked with me in terms of licensing and creating a system, our own system of a CRM. So we have got our own bespoke CRM system. Automations became a new thing with this guy who came on board. Basically, he started helping me in automations and making sure that the customers' rollovers were given on time. They were sent an email on time. Birthday cards were sent on time. And another thing which, Ross, I always believe, that we can do as many emails and e-cards, but I always believe till in last year that whenever this customer's milestone, like a birthday, we should always send them a physical birthday card handwritten, because in today's time, you only get mails which are full of bills.
Yeah.
Or you don't get anything. Gone are the days of personally getting a birthday card or an anniversary card or something personalized. So I would always recommend, that's what I always did when I was on the field, that go and meet the customers on their milestones. You bought a house, I'm going to come and get lunch for you. You're moving, I'll make sure that I come with pizzas at night so that your move is easy and I'll help you out. And making sure that after the settlement, there was a settlement call which was done and asking them, is everything okay? Because as I said, sometimes we are running so fast that we forget the basics. So what I learned overall going backwards and forwards is that never forget the basics. Keep yourself in, there's a word called equanimity, making sure that you kept your equanimity and making sure that you don't lose that balance. I did lose my balance many times. I lost some customers, won some customers, and the ride of getting more and more business. But what I learned is, and which I'm applying to my business every day now, is that the right people, right skills and the right skill set when is in front of customers, everybody's happy and you are happy and at peace.
Yeah, love it. Love it. And, in terms of, I think, when you've got a team, how important is it? And one of the things that you just said was, the right skills in doing the right roles. And, how important is that? And because, people don't have a wide range of focus, do they? But if you can get people in the right seats doing exactly the right roles and they're clear on what they're doing, I know I found that in my business. It's so important. Just comment on that for me.
Yeah.
So in terms of what are some of the different roles that you have within your business,
okay,
that are sort of specific to the task and that you need those right skill sets?
Yes. So what we're doing, Ross, is that what I had always, learned, and what are my learnings so far, is that you need to have people who could be your sales support, your frontline people who could basically make sure that the rollovers are done on time, customers are contacted, making sure that the advisor who's given the advice is available to advise those customers to fix or float, making sure that nobody in the team is giving an advice. So we've got a structure of sales support, which is going to make sure that they do the documentations. The documentations are collected, the checklists are followed. Once the documentations are collected, they are loaded in the system. Then it goes to the lending team. So lending managers, or loan writers, as you call in Australia, is basically people who would then process the deal and make sure they coordinate with the bank on my behalf, making sure I'm in the loop and making sure before they process it, my diary notes and the way to put it through, the strategy, the structure is done through by me. And then the lending team follows through. Once the approval comes in, then we meet the customer, do a structure meeting with them. So the sales support, the lending team, and then the insurance team comes in to make sure that it's all closed and the customers are protected and the families are covered. And then the sales support team always takes over again in terms of managing the customer day to day, in terms of inquiries, banking stuff, forms, and other stuff, so that every team can do things properly. Now, this structure was made in the last 6 to 8 months with my new general manager. Before that, we used to have sales support, lending manager. So a lending manager used to do everything, and the sales support used to do documentation and rollovers. So now we've increased the sales support team to a higher number because we only want the lending writers to only write, process the deal, and not do any other paperwork. Yeah. So that basically speeds up the process for everyone.
Definitely. I think, doing that and getting those people focused in the right areas, they become experts in what they're doing. And I'm sure if you were like me, you would go to your lending team and ask questions because you get out of the habit of doing it and they become more experts than you in terms of, because you're focused on your front end piece and you leave them to become the experts of that piece.
Exactly. And that's where, having a general manager or having team leaders in different, so sales support is a team leader, then we have a lending team leader, then they all report to a GM. Then we've got our compliance and product team separately as well. So this is the background team which does all the compliance piece, making sure that there are scorecards being made for every advisor, contracting or non-contracting, making sure that we are following the Financial Market Authority FMA guidelines. As you would know, that New Zealand is also going through a lot of changes in terms of customer care, as what Australia had gone through many years back. So we are going through that and making sure that any advice piece has gone through me or an advisor who's accredited through the banks. This is very, very important in New Zealand and obviously in Australia as well. So everything is important. As I said, that the balance of the right structure and the right policy is important.
Love it. So in terms of, I love this conversation. I mean, there's been so many gems that you've shared, from customer service to internal networks to growing and scaling a team. I think, it's adding a lot of value. In terms of the one thing that I'd love to talk on, and we chat a little bit about this off air, is how important is it to have a focus on growth?
Focus on growth is the spearhead. If you are trying to basically run, when we run, we focus on an end goal, right? That's basically I believe in manifestation, right? So having the right manifestation on the right amount of growth is important. My learning was that when I started as a mortgage advisor or a broker, I wanted to grow, at the fastest speed possible. But what I learned in the first 3 years is that, or 4 years, is that it's important to have the right amount of growth and channelize it. So your question about the growth, it's important to know and have a goal in place, but making sure that it's broken down further in terms of customer outcomes. So if your growth is related to customer growth, you can't go wrong.
Beautiful. So let's I'm interested to dig into that a little bit more in terms of
Sure.
how you sort of break down that. All right, so we've got an end goal in
Yeah.
terms of, and then just give me a little bit more meat around how you actually then go ahead and break down that growth.
Well, I'm a very philosophical character. So I've always believed in one thing. What has worked for me, I never used to sit down and write big business plans. I used to write, okay, I want to grow these many customers this year, right? X amount. And for that, I would need to do as many loans, right? So what I used to do is that I used to manifest that, okay, if I have to work on 500 customers this year, right? That at that time, the average size was 500,000 to 600,000. So I said, okay, 500 customers is my growth target this year. There'll basically be 250 million. For 250 million or 200 odd million a year, what I need to do is I need to make sure that I've got my team who are well versed in terms of writing that business. And myself, I didn't have a life. I would say that I used to work literally every hour of the night or morning to make sure that either I'm processing a deal or talking to a customer or entertaining a customer or entertaining some key guests or clients or bankers, to making sure that everybody was kept updated and everybody was kept happy, as the mortgage broker. So breaking down further, it comes down to when you go to number of lending, then you go to number of customers, then you see what is your database, how many people do you have at the stage, right? And then you understand the basics, that all these customers who are referring me business is basically amplifying. One customer is giving me at least 5 to 10 customers. So what I need to do is I need to make sure that I'm looking after and talking to my customers and leave the rest, because manifestation is the biggest thing which we all need to work on. At the end, we all are instruments which are thrown to play or which are born to play. And sometimes we believe or we think that we control everything, and we do it. But I personally, on a philosophical side, believe that we are all meant to do certain things, and everything is planned. We just go and do our part, and the plan comes to fruition. Yeah. If I say, or you say, you've been a very successful mortgage broker and you've interviewed so many people, what I would say, or you would, testify it, or you can tell me if I'm wrong, that the basic for every salesperson is making sure that they're doing a good job by the customer and by themselves and working as hard as possible. But we all go through a break point at one time. How do we control and come out of that break point? That's the most important key for us brokers. Yeah. What do you think?
And yeah, definitely. I think, in terms of, I agree in terms of about what a lot of those things you say. You've got to put it out there. You've got to put your goal out there. It creates that different energy, and it creates that, the willingness and the belief that you can obviously go out and do it, which is so powerful. And then you share people and you get people along the journey, right? You share that vision and you get them along the journey to really share that. So I love that. And I think it's really, really powerful. In terms of setbacks, I definitely agree, but that's part of, being human and learning from our mistakes, right? And,
exactly.
I used to say that you build a system and the system will work until you outgrow that system and then you break it. Right. And then you have to make another one, the pieces, and then you have to rebuild it again. And, and that is constantly happening. And I'm sure, from yourself, Dev, as you grow and you get more and more referrals and, you have to keep evolving, right? It's that sort of growth, the natural growth that comes with a growing mortgage broking practice.
Exactly. And as you also, you touched about on a very important point, that making sure that your vision and dream is transcribed to other people. In my team, I probably, the contracting advisors which we've got and other people who've joined hands, is basically my goal is to now make sure that these guys become successful and become the top writers, because that's the next challenge. Your internal customers, your internal people, how can you learn and make them grow? Because every story has got its own element. So
yeah,
an answer.
I guess the biggest theme I've taken out of this conversation, Dev, is service and adding value. It's all around adding value to the customer, adding value to your internal customers, whether that be your own staff or whether that be the banks that you're partnering and working alongside of. Not focusing on the dollars, because they'll be a result of the service and the value that you provide to other people. So
Exactly.
I love that. We're going to wrap it up here, but I ask everyone as closing, right? So if you were getting started in the mortgage broking business and you were looking at growing and scaling a mortgage broking practice, what would be your one piece of advice for someone looking to do that?
Be out there and be in front of as many people as possible. Don't think that you're going to convert them. I always believed in one principle, that everybody walking and talking would want to buy a house one day or want to grow in their finances. So everybody is a customer. Do not, shadow somebody that, oh, maybe not a customer now. Keep on talking to as many people, be in front of as many people, add value and create a right balance, and you'll get successful.
Awesome. I've really enjoyed this on so many levels, Dev. I think it's been so much value to the audience, and it's great that you could be our first New Zealand guest. And there's, even though you're across the ditch, the parallels between Australia and New Zealand is exactly the same. It comes down to the basic philosophies in terms of how to grow a successful mortgage broking practice is exactly the same. And you've highlighted that, and it's simple, right? And people overcomplicate it, but they're getting that balance right with the customers and delivering to the banks is and what a job of a mortgage broker is really about. So thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Ross. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
All right, this has been another episode of the $1 Billion Broker podcast. If you want to get in touch or you're interested in being coaching by myself, reach out. Also, you can follow us on Facebook. There's a $1 Billion Broker private group. So reach out and join the group, and we share lots of gold on that. Otherwise, you can hit me up on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, and look forward to serving you and helping you grow a business that you're proud of.